everyone, welcome to my channel. Today we are going to discuss about devotional paths to the divine. This is a chapter from class 7 NCERT textbook. Let's begin with the Bhakti movement.
The movement started around 8th century Common Era. Let's understand what was Bhakti movement and what was their ideology of Bhakti or devotion. The term Bhakti refers to devotion to the Supreme God. The Bhakti saints focused on social and religious equality. They questioned the role of priestly class or the Brahmanas who used to dictate the rules of religion, and they had limited the access to God only for higher caste. The Shudras were not allowed in the temples. The Brahmanas also designed complicated rituals which were challenged by the Bhakti saints, who believed that devotion is more important than rituals. The message of devotion was spread to major parts of India, north as well as south. Kabir, Tulsidas, Guru Nanak were some of the Bhakti saints in North India. Saints of South India may be grouped as Alwar saints and Nayanar saints. Let's know about these saints in some detail and learn from their messages of love for humanity and equality. Saint Kabir. He was brought up in a family of Muslim julahas or weavers settled in Banaras or Varanasi. He believed that idol worship or any rituals are not needed to reach out to God. Devotion or love for God is the true worship, so he rejected all forms of external worship and highlighted that God should be worshipped from heart. And this God may be considered as the supreme God who has no form or figure. He preached that the only path to salvation or moksha was through devotion only, which would help us to meet the Supreme God. For this devotion, Saint Kabir rejected the role of Brahmanas or priestly class. He was also against the caste system or hierarchy in the society. Baba Guru Nanak. He was born at Talwandi in Pakistan. He emphasized on the importance of one God and insisted that God can be attained through devotion only, not through rituals. But he clearly mentioned that devotion does not mean living an inactive life and forgetting the social responsibility. Rather, devotion means pursuit of active life and staying committed to serve the society and working for the welfare of people. He used the terms like Naam or right worship, Dan, which means welfare of others, and Isnan or purity of conduct. His teachings are now remembered as Naam Japna, Kirt Karna, and Bandh Chakna, which underline the importance of right belief and worship, honest living, and helping others. I must say that such teachings are truly relevant even in 21st century. We need to be committed for our social responsibilities. With this message of love and equality, the followers of Baba Guru Nanak ate together in the common kitchen called Langar. Guru Nanak also created a sacred place known as Dharmasal, which is now called Gurudwara. Mirabai. She was the disciple or student of Saint Ravidas, who was considered as an untouchable. Mirabai was devoted to Lord Krishna and composed innumerable bhajans expressing her intense devotion. Like other bhakti saints, she also challenged the norms of the upper caste and became popular with the masses in Rajasthan and Gujarat. Adi Shankaracharya. He was born in Kerala in the 8th century Common Era. He was an advocate of Advaita. It meant that the ultimate reality is the union or oneness of the individual soul with the Supreme God. He considered the world around us to be an illusion or Maya. He taught or preached that the renunciation of the world is needed to attain salvation.
Moving on to Ramanuja, he was born in Tamil Nadu in the 11th century. According to him, the best means of attaining salvation was through intense devotion to Vishnu. Vishnu, in his grace, helps the devotee to attain the bliss of union with him. He propounded the doctrine of Vishishtadvait or qualified oneness, in that the soul, even when united with the Supreme God, remained distinct. Let's have a quick look at the basic difference between Advait and Vishishtadvait. Advait philosophy preached the renunciation of the world and adoption of path of vidya or knowledge to attain liberation or moksha. In Vishishtadvait philosophy, moksha or liberation can be attained by loving God or with the intense devotion to God.
Coming to the Bhakti movement in South India, there were two groups of saints, Alvars and Nayanars. Alvars were the worshippers of Lord Vishnu and hence were known as Vaishnavites. On the other hand, Nayanars were the worshippers of Lord Shiva and hence were known as Shivites. These saints did not belong to higher castes only. They were from all the castes, including those considered untouchable. These saints drew upon the ideals of love and heroism as found in the Sangam literature and blended them with the values of bhakti. These Alvar and Nayanar saints went from place to place composing poems in praise of deities. And that's how bhakti movement was spread all over India. To summarize, we may say that bhakti movement was a struggle against the orthodox ideas and superstitions. The movement was spreading the message of love, devotion, and service to humanity.
Now let's move on to the Veerashaiva movement, which was initiated by Basavana and his companions like Allama Prabhu and Akka Mahadevi. This movement began in Karnataka in the mid-12th century. The Veerashaivas argued strongly for the equality of all human beings and against Brahmanical ideas about caste and the treatment of women. They were also against all forms of ritual and idol worship. From here, let's move on to Maharashtra. From 13th to 17th centuries, Maharashtra saw a great number of saint poets who inspired many people. The most important among them were Janeshwar, Namdev, Eknath and Tukaram, as well as women like Sakubai and the family of Chokhamela, who belonged to the untouchable Meher caste. They focused on the Vitthal temple in Pandharpur. Vithala is a form of Vishnu. They believed on the notion of a personal God residing in the hearts of all people. These saint poets rejected all forms of ritualism, outward display of piety, and social differences based on birth. They even rejected the idea of renunciation and preferred to live with their families, earning their livelihood like any other person, and serving fellow human beings in need. They insisted that bhakti lay in sharing others' pain. Now let's also talk about Nathpanthis, Siddhas, and Yogis. They advocated renunciation of the world. To them, the path to salvation lay in the meditation on the formless ultimate reality and the realization of oneness with it. They advocated intense training of the mind and body through practices like yogasanas, breathing exercises, and meditation. They criticized the conventional religion and created the ground for devotional religion. These groups were particularly popular among low castes.
Let's have a look at the Sufi movement. We are going to discuss about the time period 11th century onwards when a large number of Sufis from Central Asia began to settle in Hindustan. The term used in the Islamic text for Sufism is tasawwuf. The origin of this term is interpreted by historians in different ways. Some believe that it is derived from the term safa, which in Arabic means purity. According to some scholars, it is derived from suf, meaning wool, referring to the coarse woolen clothes worn by the Sufis. And some historians derived Sufism or tasawwuf from sufa, that is, the platform outside the Prophet Muhammad's mosque where a group of close followers assembled to learn about Islam. Coming to the Sufi movement. The Sufi movement was a socio-religious movement which stood against the growing materialism in religious institutions. The Sufis did not attach importance to namaz, hajj, and celibacy. The union of the human soul with God through love and devotion was the essence of the teachings of the Sufi saints. So, the term Sufism is synonymous to the ideology which believes that purity of thought and conduct would draw us closer to the God. The Sufis emphasized on seeking salvation through intense devotion and love for God by following His commands and following the footsteps of the Prophet Muhammad, whom they regarded as a perfect human being. Now, let's have a look at some Sufi institutions and practices. Sufis began to organize communities or held their assemblies in their khanqahs. These khanqahs were hospices or house of rest for religious travelers. Khanqahs comprised several small rooms and a big hall called Jamaat Khana. Khanqahs also became the centers where people discussed spiritual matters, sought the blessings of the saints in solving their worldly problems. These khanqahs were controlled by a teaching master known as Sheikh or Peer or Murshid. These masters enrolled their students or disciples known as murids. Masters also appointed a successor called Khalifa. The chain from masters to disciples was a continuous link, forming one order of Sufi saints or silsila. There are many Sufi silsilas like Qadiri silsila, Chishti silsila, etc. These silsilas were often named after their founders. Like Chishti silsila was named after its founder Muinuddin Chishti. Sufi saint Muinuddin Chishti and his followers together formed Chishti Silsila. These saints were given status of masters with miraculous powers that could relieve others of their illnesses and troubles. The tomb called Dargah of these saints also became the center of devotion for their followers. This encouraged the practice of pilgrimage called ziyarat to the graves of these Sufi saints. The followers often go for ziyarat on the death anniversary or urs of these saints, as people believed that in death saints are united with God and thus were closer to Him. Thus, these Sufi saints began to be called as Sheikh or Wali, that is, friends of God. Also, part of ziyarat is the use of music and dance as a part of devotion and worship to God. The Sufis believed that the heart can be trained to look at the world in a different way. They developed elaborate methods of training using zikr, that is, chanting of sacred name, contemplation, sama or singing, raqs or dancing, discussion of parables or moral lessons, etc., under the guidance of a master or peer. The best part of the Sufi movement was the idea to inculcate a humanistic attitude amongst people. They had spread the message of social and religious equality and harmony. This message of love and harmony makes the ideology of Sufism meaningful even today. I hope you liked this video. For more such academic videos, do not forget to like, share, comment, and do subscribe this YouTube channel Constructing Minds.